In this section, we are going to be going over the different configurations of the traditional authorities. So, we discuss some of the authorities in the types. And if you are not new to human design, you know of the authorities, but there are configurations that should be considered when talking about each of these authorities because they really affect how one experiences that authority and also affects the ease at which they can follow it. And I'm going to be going through, I think there's 15 of them. I'm going to do my best to keep it short and sweet, but we'll see. Okay, so the first one is a manifestor with an emotional authority and defined spleen. So why this is important is because a manifestor is designed to move quickly. They want to move quickly. It's part of their energetic makeup, right? They're configured around independent action. They feel the urge to move, they move. This is why an emotional authority is particularly challenging for a manifestor, but then you add the defined spleen in, and it's another level. So you're mechanically wired for speed, but your authority requires you to slow down. So you add that defined spleen in, which speaks instantly and it speaks one time. And now you have two forces both saying now, right? The spleen hits and the manifestor wants to initiate. The waiting then feels unnatural and even wrong. And this is the core tension around this configuration. So let's just discuss the emotional authority first. So the core principle of an emotional authority is there is no truth in the now. A defined solar plexus means every decision is going to be filtered through consistently shifting emotional chemistry. So yes at the high of the wave and a yes at the low of the wave are not the same. Yes, at all. And neither of them is your full truth, right? Clarity only comes through riding the wave completely. So you're not in an up, you're not in a down. You've gone through your up and down, you've gone through your wave, and you're feeling emotional clarity. What is the difference between clarity and certainty? The goal is not 100% mental certainty. Clarity is pre-rational. It arrives when the nervousness that you feel around something, maybe even the excitement, drops. It's a genuine neutrality and it settles in. And if you're at a high or a low, you're not there yet. So some practical guidance is to just sleep on it. Let the wave process the decision made from that neutral point. It's as close to an aligned one as you're going to get. The solar plexus is directly connected to food, sex, breath. So when the emotional system is honored, when the wave is ridden rather than acted on, those systems naturally regulate. So if you're experiencing chaos in your breath or you're overeating or you're retaining water or feeling hypersexual, you are not at neutral. So it's a good way to think about it. Now we're going to add in the spleen. So why it matters mechanically, the spleen is defined. Because they're both awareness centers, remember. So the spleen is the oldest awareness center and the emotional center is also an awareness center. They're running simultaneously. The spleen is not going to shut up or go quiet just because the emotional center is the authority, is the primary authority, right? It's always going to be producing this awareness about safety and health and timing and what is correct in the now for you. And the issue is that the emotional wave actively conditions how the spleen response is perceived. I cannot emphasize this enough. The spleen communicates through different senses. So there's smell, taste, touch. So gates 28 and 57. We'll get into the gates, but I'm going to tell you gates 28, 57, hearing, acoustic, it's your right ear. Smell is 54, 32, 50, 44. Taste, gate 18. So the same splenic hit that feels like calm, quiet nudge at the end of a wave can feel like a terrifying warning at a low, right? The hit itself hasn't changed. The emotional coloring, how you experience it, it does. So if you were in a high, you might get a splenic hit. Because you're in a high, you're going to experience it as intuition, right? But if you get that same hit is still true, right? But you're in a low, you're going to experience it as fear. And then you're going to most likely not do it. Do you see why this is so important? So you cannot act on a splenic hit when you're an emotional authority because you have a defined solar plexus. You don't know yet if what you're feeling is a genuine splenic hit or it's just a distortion caused by the wave. So intuition versus anxiety is, here's some distinctions. So a genuine hit arrives once and quietly, whereas an emotional distortion is going to repeat and it escalates. A true splenic hit is going to be calm, specific. There's no narrative around it. You're not hearing a story around it. You're not spiraling. And then the emotional distortion is story driven, worst case scenarios, right? The splenic hit passes after it speaks, right? It says the thing and it's gone. Emotional loops, grows louder, and then intuitive is it's simply saying not this. And then the emotional is going to build this elaborate reasoning around the fear. It's dramatic because it's emotional. So a low wave can take a quiet splenic warning and amplify it into full anxiety. So it's emotional chemistry. How the decision flow ideally goes is splenic hit, you're a manifestor, you see something, or you have to make a choice. Splenic hit arrives. So it's data, acknowledge it. I have a hit, either you might be experiencing it as fear or intuition. Do not act on it. Ride the wave. Observe how that same hit feels at the high. How does it feel at the low and at the neutral point? Collect data at those points. Watch for consistency. If the hit remains consistent across the entire wave, it's likely true. If the fear dissolves once the wave settles, it might be emotional coloring, right? Wait for the neutral point. So when the nervousness drops and the calm is there, clarity is there, right? It's like when you're out in the ocean, when the boat is just there, it's on the water. Of course, it's moving, but there's not these waves, right? And then make your decision, inform, then initiate. So inform, let everybody that's going to be impacted know what's going on, and then take the very first step. So for a manifestor, this configuration asks that it cuts through, obviously, your very nature. So it's asking a lot of you, and that's slow down before you initiate. Your spleen is going to tell you to move now. You have to say, I'm going to wait on it. The spleen is not obviously your enemy. It's valuable. It's collecting data. It's collecting intelligence. But your defined emotional authority needs a full picture before you move as a manifestor.